everyone, and welcome back to the Museum Show and Tell Show. I'm your host, Nicole, from the Penetanguishene Museum, and I'm here with Genevieve from the Huronia Museum.
Hello.
And in today's episode, Genevieve challenged the Penetanguishene Museum to try to find an artifact that relates to National Textiles Day, which is coming up. So what do you have for us today, Genevieve?
I have brought in some material that deals with this fella right here, Thor Hansen. Now, Thor Hansen was a really interesting man. He was a Danish immigrant to Canada, and he really brought the idea with him, the Scandinavian idea of like a synthesis of craft and design with traditions, folklore, local, like incorporating folklore and histories and regional or even national flora and fauna into your craft work. And it was craft work at all levels. So whether it was someone that actually made a living through their craft, or whether it was women working at home, just creating for their own pleasure. So he used to travel across the country lecturing on the subject. And in 1948, William Cranston, who was the publisher of the Midland Free Press, who was also an advocate of art and history, he invited Thor Hansen to come to talk to the members of the Simcoe County Arts and Crafts Association on the subject of craft in design. And it was during that time that Cranston actually introduced the idea of holding a quilt and rug fair or show, which is still held today at the Simcoe County Museum in Midhurst in September. And Thor Hansen was enthusiastic about the idea, and he even offered designs of his own. So he was working for the British American Oil Company at the time, but he managed to create a lot of designs outside of his work there for the Simcoe County Crafts Association, Arts and Crafts, sorry. And I've got some of them today. And what he'd normally do is he would draw and paint on artboard. And this one is called Huron Trails. So we've got the water represented here. And I'll hold this up here. We've got a canoe reflected in the water, the canoe and the clouds reflected in the water. And he often made a suggestion for what although I don't see it on here, for what the piece of art could be used for. So I do know that this was used as a quilt pattern. We've got another that will be familiar to a lot of people in the area. And this one incorporates local folklore. So here we have Kimchi Kiwana. And we do have, this design was used later on by some members of the Simcoe County Arts and Crafts Association to create a large hooked rug. I haven't pulled that out of storage, but it's absolutely enormous and it's absolutely beautiful. It's stunning. Kimchi Kiwana. What I do have is another quilt pattern of a goose. Oh, and a member of the has interpreted that, and rather than rug hooking, what they have done is they've embroidered the goose. So this is there, and that's what he really was good at. He create patterns, and they can be interpreted in a number of media. So they could be done in metalwork, copper, quilting, different kinds of needlework, painting, fabric, silkscreen fabrics. We've got another one. This is called Grist Mill. So we've got the millstone in the center. And what's really interesting is he does a lot of pattern repetition. So you'll see a lot of that sort of thing. Creates very symmetrical, although not always symmetrical. And then this one, again, that pattern has been made into a hooked rug. We have a huge collection of his material here. We have a lot of the patterns that he made for the Simcoe County Arts and Crafts Association, then also a lot of patterns for the various buildings that he designed for, the office spaces that he designed for across Canada, the British American Oil Company, so in Vancouver. And it's really interesting because they do incorporate local folklore, local animals and fauna. He used like West Coast native material in his offices out west, and a lot of plant and animal life that you'd find in the oceans. A lot of in Vancouver, he talked a lot about the Red River. Yeah, so it's really wonderful stuff. So and we do actually have the Simcoe County Arts and Crafts Association took a lot of those patterns that Thor had created and made their own quilt patterns from them. And they donated all of those quilt patterns to us. We've copied them and we do have them available in our gift shop. And what's really neat is that we've had quilters from across Canada somehow find out about our patterns, and they've contacted us, and I haven't seen the end results yet, but they did promise occasionally to send me photos once they're finished. So it's really nice to see that his ideas and his patterns are still popular, and the continuation of exactly what he'd hoped, I guess, for the synthesis of craft and design and history and the Canadian identity.
That is fantastic. I really liked that first design you showed of the canoe.
Oh, the canoe, yeah.
Because it also looks in some way like, the trees that we have in Georgian Bay, they're, reminiscent of the Group of Seven, but sort of the side, the trees.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like that. And then
the windswept
canoe. I just like how it has like two looks to it. So now he donated all that to the museum. Did he have a connection to the museum or the area?
No, he didn't actually. We got it from another museum, the Tom Thompson Gallery. His family, after his death, he donated material, or his family had donated a lot of material to the Tom Thompson Gallery at Owen Soundway. And then in 1994, they deaccessioned their material and gave it to us. Although we did have a number of other items that had been collected from various, some cottages, because a lot of his fabrics that were silk screened, like this one right here, the Sundridge, were made into curtain panels, and a lot of people seem to have those in their cottages. And all of the British American Oil Company gas stations or rest stops across Canada were decorated with his designs as well. So I know that when the gas station down in Cookstown closed, that we acquired some of the material that had been used to decorate that as well.
Oh, really?
Fine stuff.
Yeah. So, and it's neat that how you came to the collection is through something that maybe not a lot of people know about, is like deaccessioning, when a certain museum has something in their collection, but it no longer pertains to their collection policy. They do offer it to other museums to make sure that it's still available to the public, but it's at a museum that actually makes a little bit more sense. And because he kind of helped with the Simcoe County quilt show, that's kind of neat.
Yeah, rather than it being sold, I guess, into
ending up in private hands. It's hard for people to ever be able to view it or see it, right? So we're just sitting here holding it all in trust for the people so they have access, right?
That's correct.
So my artifact is a little different than yours. When you said, textiles, usually I think of an artifact or a style and then I go with it. I try to look for something that relates to it. I'm pretty simple when it comes to textiles. So the first thing I thought about was quilts. because we have quite a few quilts in our collection. And a lot of our quilts are wrapped really well and properly conserved in our basement. We had one that I was thinking about bringing out for today, but I just thought, oh, if I take it out, it's really well wrapped and it's really well preserved, and I take it out and it's so large, it would be really hard for me to show off anyways. And I know in the past I've done another one of our interesting quilts that we have in our collection. So I looked at this quilt, which we always have a display. And the interesting thing about this quilt here is actually more of its provenance than actually the artifact, because that's sometimes when we do collect artifacts, it's whether it's that object is so interesting or who owned it or how we came to have it is what's interesting about it. And what I didn't know originally, because this is always on display, is that it was actually donated by the Ontario Hospital or our Waypoint Mental Health Center that we have here in Penetanguishene. And this was done, I guess it was donated in the 1960s. So it's one of our original artifacts that was donated. And so it is quite simple, this quilt, but it was used by the patients there as part of their occupational therapy. So if you know anything about the mental health center here in Penetanguishene, originally on the grounds, it was the boys reformatory going back to 1859. This picture here is actually taken in the 1930s. And that main building there is from 1859. It was a boys reformatory. And, and then in 1904, which last week we had 1905 fire department, but the 1904 was converted to the Asylum of the Insane. That's what it was called, under the first superintendent, Dr. Philip Spahn, who was actually our first reeve here in town. In 1933, it was, they built the criminally insane building, which they referred to as Oak Ridges. And then it was renamed the Ontario Hospital. And then in the end of the 1960s, it was renamed the Mental Health Center. And now in 2011, it was renamed the Waypoint Center for Mental Health Care. So this was donated right around the time that it was still considered the Ontario Hospital, but changing over to the Mental Health Center. And the whole idea of occupational therapy, it was, common therapy was to help, with help their lifespan to pursue things that they want or need to do through therapeutic use of everyday activities. Common occupational therapy interventions include helping children with disabilities to participate fully in school and social situations, injury rehabilitation, and providing supports for older adults experiencing physical and cognitive changes. Sewing was definitely used to combat depression because it was known to help with calming the mind and reducing stress. And I think that we will all agree, especially in the last couple of years, with everything that we're going through, a lot of people turn to arts and crafts to help with calming, reducing stress, and to help with depression. A lot of people know about the other forms of occupational therapy that happen at the Mental Health Center. They did farming there. They had a farm there, and it was in the 1960s. Here's a photo, of a cow that was there, and a lot of people helped with farming as part of their occupational therapy. They also helped with sewing baseballs and making baseballs. And it was actually the sewing of the baseballs that they really enjoyed. This is what the size of the Ontario Hospital in the 1960s looked like. So this is the size of it when they were doing the sewing here. And this picture here originally is from the 1930s. So it was a lot smaller in this one here, but it is, just a very, as I said, a simple design here that was used. And, but I just think the idea that, where it came from and the whole idea of textiles really helping with therapy and with depression and just having, expressing your artistic merits through this and completing a job and everything like that was always very good for anybody. especially today. And I know that I'm sure in a couple of years, we're probably going to see some very beautiful quilts that probably started during, 2020, 2021, because, it takes a while to complete some of these things. And I look forward to seeing some of the future quilt shows. And see what people have brought forward to help them through some difficult times in their life. So that's my artifact for today.
That's wonderful. Oh, what a great story.
Yeah, sometimes it's all, sometimes artifacts are about the stories, right? And sometimes it's just about the amazing artistic talent, like with your artifact. So for next week, I thought we would go a little different because May is museum month, right? It's a month where we promote museums. And I was just interested if we could take our viewers a little bit behind the scenes when we talk about sort of our favorite tool or object or something that helps us when it comes to accessioning artifacts, if there's like a really good guide you have, or maybe, a workstation or just even a small tool that, helps you, or somehow if there's like a book that you use a lot when you're looking up, doing research, anything like that. I thought it'd be neat for us to showcase a little behind the scenes for museums and collections. So what do you think about that one?
That sounds wonderful.
All right. So I really look forward to seeing what you have next week. And I look forward to showing up what I have in mind for next week too. So I hope everybody joins us and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.